Mm. Mm. Well, hello. Yes. What's up? What's going on, my fellow fart knockers and dillweeds? It's me, Ant Master 5, with yet another episode of the Gen X Locker. Coming at you from 8 feet underground, wherever the hell I am, somewhere at the base of the Catskill Mountains. So yeah, I apologize. I've been a little laxed. Had a couple things going on, and everything's cool, all right, and smooth. And I got myself sick. I got me a bit of a head cold. I'm all stuffed up. One of my lights just went off for no reason, but we don't edit here at the Gen X Locker, so I don't want to get up and go adjust the light. But speaking of no editing, if you see me blow my nose, I don't care. I have a head cold, but I wanted to do this episode, and this episode, what are we talking about tonight, Ant Master Five? When that's me. Do you have a personality? Who's Natalie? A personality disorder. So, the Gen X home video game console episode. The video game consoles of Gen X. What were they? Where did they begin? Who are you? And why are you in my basement? What'd you have? Did you have a video game console? A home video game console. Let's keep that plugged in. And where did you start? What was the first one? I really couldn't wait to like just dive deep into this episode. Now, like with most of the stuff I talk about, it's really kind of a retrospect of me, what I saw through these eyes. And so we're not going to talk about every freaking what do you call you wear the same thing every Christmas. Every video game home video game console. Oh yes, disclaimer, of course. So I'm talking about home. You're at home. I'm talking about home video game console. So I do believe in the future and not the very distant future at all. We could definitely do an arcade. I almost said an Arcadia. We could definitely do an arcade episode where we can talk about, the big stand up machines that gobbled up your quarters. But no, I wanted to talk about the home video game consoles, the console wars. Do you remember hearing that? The console wars. So our story begins. Open your prayer guides to the book of Genesis. Where does our story begin? Our story begins in I'm gonna say somewhere in like late 1981 when Ant Master 5 was a wee lad of 6. So where it all started for me was my two first cousins that lived pretty locally, like a couple towns over. They had gotten Atari, and man, now Atari was already out for a few years. Atari was released in 1977. So I'm going to say it was definitely by 81 when they got it. And, I remember going over to the house and, seeing it and just completely dumbfounded. This is the coolest thing ever, and I remember they had Pac-Man, and I honestly, I cannot think of any other game besides Pac-Man and Kaboom. And if anybody remembers Kaboom for Atari, it was the separate controller. Atari came with the very basic joystick. It was just a joystick and a button. I don't know if you want to call it a fire button or a jump button, but it was one button, which is so funny because you look at the controllers today and it's just like this whole mess of buttons and switches and dials and knobs and bangs and humming machinery. But no, it wasn't like that. It was very simplicity, all there, just joystick and a button. And I remember I was like, oh my God, I gotta have it. I gotta have it. And you're 6 years old and you're just, can I? But it didn't happen. And it didn't happen for, like another year or so. So in 1982, in the summer of 1982, Coleco, the toy company, released the ColecoVision. Now, at that time, the console wars was basically the Atari, and then Mattel had a system called the Intellivision, which really quick, I did a little bit of my own personal research before the episode. And what I mean by that is I talk to friends. Some of my friends are millennials and they're not Gen Xers. And I was actually surprised that one of my close friends, and he's like my IT guy friend, my buddy Pete, actually started with Intellivision. And I was like, excuse me, because I got quite a number of years on Mr. Peter. And I said, wow, all right. A lot of other people within the Gen X friends and family all started out with Atari, but not Ant Master 5. So our our story well, we already began our story. The second phase of our story. So like I said, I was obsessed, and but then I remember seeing ColecoVision come out, and I was like, wow. And the console wars, as they call them, and it was all about the advertising. I mean, these companies were just taken to the to TV, and not so much radio, but Saturday morning cartoons. Once there was a commercial, it was just you saw two kids sitting there on the bedroom floor playing Atari or whatnot. Excuse me. I told you no editing. Can I wet my whistle? Hang on, I know what I want to say. But it was definitely a thing. They were just spoon feeding it to you. It was 1984. It was all the, it was yeah, they were they were implanting it into your brains. And I was like, so I yeah, definitely, here I am, and I'm just a little kid, and I'm like, oh, ColecoVision? What? So my mom's cousin, no shit, weird science. They owned an electronics store in Jackson Heights, Queens. And total ace in the hole. I mean, you want to talk about a shoe in. I mean, we're Italian. Everything is, falling off the back of the truck. And, my dad knows a guy. But this time, my mom really knew a guy. She knew, too. She knew, her cousin and her husband. They owned an electronics store. And they basically said to my mom, oh, you know what? He wants ColecoVision. Yeah, it's so much better than the Atari. You want to get ColecoVision. Yes. So, Christmas of 1982, I unwrap a ColecoVision, which I always found funny because my a very, very good friend of my brother's, and they were very, very close friends of our family. They gave me a Christmas gift about a week before Christmas. We were over their house. I don't remember what the occasion was. They said, here, don't open this till Christmas. That, we'll talk about that in a second. It would happen to be a ColecoVision game cartridge. I was like, don't open this till Christmas. And I remember my mom saying, I want to say to my sister, she said, is that what I think it is? And my sister kind of went, yeah. And I was in the back seat. And my mom called it not like the plaque on your teeth, but like a plaque on the wall. She was like, oh, it's that plaque. Who knew what the word cartridge was? And so, oh, God rest my mom's soul. But I always remembered her saying that. Is it the plaque? They got me a plaque? What the hell did they get me a plaque for? So, Christmas morning, I tear open the ColecoVision. And it was everything I thought it could be. Now, the cool thing about ColecoVision is that this is when you first started getting into the bit ratings. I don't even know how the hell they rate the graphics of video games today, but the game system itself was on a four. I'm holding up four fingers. Was on a 4-bit graphic. I remember that. I know. Should I have did this episode with a cough? But who cares? Like I said, no editing, and we're having some fun here. And it's video games, home video games. Who didn't love home video games? Actually, I did some research. Plenty of people didn't. I did. So where was I? All right. So okay. So 4-bit gaming system. So I remember in my parents' pizzeria, we had a couple of video games, the stand-up arcade games. Remember seeing Donkey Kong. Now, ColecoVision came with Donkey Kong. And let me tell you, it looked just like fucking Donkey Kong. So I mean, I remember Pac-Man on the Atari, and the Atari 2600 was like, it didn't really look like Pac-Man. It didn't look like Pac-Man at all. I mean, it looked like it, but it was very grainy, and it just wasn't cutting the mustard at all. but Donkey Kong looked like Donkey Kong. I mean, and the sound, stereo sound, and Mario would be, yeah, that was it. That was our first introduction to Mario. And Mario would be jumping over the barrels, and then he'd get the hammer. Wait, do I have the wrong song? Wasn't it like the William Tell overture? I forget. And and if he got the hammer, he could smash the barrels and then go up the ladder and save whatever the hell her name is, Princess Daphne, Penelope, uh, Veronica. I don't know. I did some research. So ColecoVision, yeah, man. So then I opened up the plaque. I remember opening up that present, and it was a game by Sega. Sega. It was a game by Sega called Zaxxon, and Zaxxon was, I guess you could call it a scroller, where I don't want to say the game moved from left to right like Super Mario Brothers, but it was more three-dimensional, and you were this little spaceship that kind of flew on like a flat asteroid with and you'd go over like little walls, and you'd shoot little robots and stuff, and hours of fun. And I mean, and these games didn't, there was no ending to these games. It wasn't like the games of today where there's an ending and the next thing the credits roll. No. The games of yesteryear just kept going and going and going. The the we used to say the board flipped. Uh, the action would speed up, the enemies would speed up, and they would change color schemes. Other than that, I mean, there wasn't much to it. So I was knee deep in ColecoVision, and I remember, a couple of family members and friends of the family that flocked to our house, descended on our house on Christmas morning. I got a couple of tapes. I got a couple of cartridges. Mousetrap was one of them. That was the only time where I remember the ColecoVision had a keypad on the controller, like a numeric keypad that's on a telephone, even with a pound sign and an asterisk, okay, a hashtag, whatever. And the only time you really used that keypad was when you wanted to select the skill level of the game, like a blue screen. It's so funny because when you look at how that dot matrix system was, it almost looks like today's like blue screen of death. Don't you dare. I'm going to point at my computer just in case I gave you any ideas. Don't. Yeah, it's just this blue screen came up with white lettering, and you could select your skill level, 1, 2, 3, how many players. It's the only time you really use the keypad. Mousetrap, I'll never forget it. It had a little inlay that you would insert into the keypad. Excuse me. And it was Mousetrap was kind of like Pac-Man, where you were a little mouse getting away from all the cats instead of the ghosts. And then with the keypad, you can open and close doors, so you can go this way, go that way. And then you would eat dog biscuits, the mouse. And then you would press number 5 and you would turn into a dog so you can chase after the cats. That's the only time I remember seeing the keypad used. But then I remember getting games like the Smurf Adventure, Cosmic Adventure. It was, yeah, they ColecoVision really started cranking out the games like right away. Now, for those of you that had ColecoVision, knew of ColecoVision, here's the clincher, Chevelle. It didn't come with, there was so much hardware sold separately. I mean, any Gen Xer from the 80s just remembers this is sold separately. Battery's not included. And this unit is sold separately. This unit is sold separately. So sold separately, there was a Atari expansion module. Now, I have done zero research on it. I had it. I did zero research. Hang on. To the point where I don't know. I'm dripping. What the stipulations were with the legalities of that. Obviously, it was legal. It wasn't like, there was no jailbreaking back in the 80s, but you could buy the Atari expansion module, and it was this brick that would plug into a bus. They didn't call them ports, I called them buses. It would plug into a bus in the front of the ColecoVision console, and now you can put in a Atari cartridge into that expansion module. You would plug in the controllers to it. So if you had the expansion module and your friends were coming over for a sleepover or something, yeah, can you bring Kaboom? Can you bring Stampede? Can you bring Haunted House? I'm just going over Atari games. If I remember correctly, Atari originally it came with combat tank anti-aircraft very basic game. It was like two. My buddy Chuck and I talked about this. It was like these two little tanks, and there wasn't much of anything. It's so funny because we looked at it then and we were like, the graphics are amazing. Buckle up, just wait. So yeah, so I was immersed in ColecoVision. I absolutely loved it. It was just the greatest thing. It was to come home from school and play a game. It was great for the weekends, and anytime a friend came over, ColecoVision. Another expansion module for ColecoVision was the I don't know if it was called the Turbo expansion module, but it was for the game Turbo, and Turbo was basically like, I don't want to say the precursor to Pole Position, or maybe they came out around the same time. If you know, chime in. But Turbo was your racing car game, and that expansion module, or that module, was just this steering wheel, honest to God, was about the size of my pop filter. So it was like, so it was funny because like my brother being 10 years older than me, so he's already like 17, 18, and he's driving this huge K5 Blazer. So watching him grab this steering wheel, like, and then it came with an accelerator pedal, which you would just like stick under your butt and just kind of lean on it, just to keep the pedal down. So yeah, so we actually had that expansion module as well. And that was just, yeah, that was it, and everybody, like I said, people will come over, we got ColecoVision. And then all of a sudden, Nintendo. I remember my cousin's stepson having Nintendo when it first came out, like the official launch of Nintendo a couple of years later. And I was over their house for like summer barbecue and hanging out. And he was like, "Oh, I got Nintendo." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And Nintendo came at that point with three count them, three games. It came with Super Mario Brothers, which we all know. Came with Duck Hunt, which we all know, and then it came with Gyromite. Yeah, a lot of people hit the Google machine on that one. So Gyromite was kind of a scrolling kind of game, and spindles would drop, so you can go to like the next level, or however it worked. But how did those spindles drop? Enter Rob, not Robert, ROB, the robot operating buddy. He was a little guy that if you ever saw Wally, the Pixar movie, Rob looked like Wally. And he just sat on the living room floor, and he kind of had these two hands, and he just would drop a spindle. You would put the spindle in Rob's hands, he would hold it, and he would drop it. And when he would drop it, it would drop on the screen, and you could go through the door. Rob didn't last too long. I guess from like a marketing perspective, they were like, yeah, this is just not going to work. So Ixnay on the Rob A, and then the Nintendo became the Nintendo Action Set. Super Mario Brothers, Duck Hunt, two controllers, and the little light zapper. And that was it. So looking at my notes, in 1986, late 1986, it was like more towards the fall, my godmother basically begged my mom, can we get Anthony a Nintendo? I was just about to turn 12, and I was like, oh my God. And I remember, if I remember correctly, they came over the night of like one of the Mike Tyson fights that my dad got on pay-per-view that lasted 4 to 7 seconds. And got Nintendo. And you got to understand, kids, these were the years, these were the days when consoles came with a fucking game, and Nintendo came with two. Like I said, they initially launched it with three, but came with two. So I had Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. And man, that was a great night. I remember setting it up on the TV, and it was just. And I remember I had it for a while, and like when my sister got married, and then I moved into her bedroom because my brother and I shared a bedroom. Nintendo came with me, and now it was like I could just play it whenever the fuck I want. And turning my brain to oatmeal. Actually, no, honest to God, it really wasn't that bad. I mean, I was an outdoorsy kid. I wanted to go ride my bike, but like, rainy days, it was, but I admit, like we were that type of family. You're not going to keep your bedroom door closed. So there was no turning on my Nintendo at like 1 o'clock in the morning, even if it's like if it wasn't a school night, if it was like, a Friday night, that my mother would have, we're Catholic, crucifixion. So looking at my notes, yeah. So, a couple of years went by and I had saved allowance and I bought myself Sega in 1980. Well, it was released in 1989. I got it when I was 15 in 1990. And so, as you can see, there's not a lot of game systems at this point. It's basically Nintendo, ColecoVision. Well, starting with ColecoVision, Nintendo, and Sega. Let me see if I got my facts right. I put stars next to everything. Yes. So I bought Sega. My buddy Ricky had it. Sonic the Hedgehog, and the funny thing is that when it came to Sega, I, it came with Sonic. Here again, consoles came with games. And the only other game I remember being obsessed with was Blades of Steel. A hockey game, because I'm a big hockey guy. I'm a diehard Islanders fan. And then the NHL started to release like the yearly games. In fact, it was either the 93 or the 94 was still available for Sega Genesis. So Blades of Steel, Sonic, and this was the console that came with me when I moved from Long Island when I was 16. So being at the, tender age of 16, just on the cusp of 17, I had my own bedroom, here when I moved up here to the mountains. And my Sega Genesis was, the nighttime friend, because like especially not on a school night. I don't care. Look, I'm 17 years old. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna be collecting rings, and I don't care. And honestly, honest to God, my parents were totally cool with it. And a long time went by. I mean, that was it. That was basically it. I kind of gave up on gaming. I really didn't I didn't do much gaming, and you can basically fill in the blanks in the years. I'm gonna blow my nose on camera. I know that's professional. Hey, look, you subscribe. Do I have a boogie? I don't think I have a boogie. I'm trying to think in the years after Sega, I can't imagine like how many game systems. I mean, do the math. There was a lot. There was a lot that came and went that I never got. And I don't know. I mean, I was not really, I guess I was all gamed out. It was like I had ColecoVision, which, blew Atari out of the water. Everybody wanted Atari, then everybody wanted ColecoVision. I had ColecoVision. I remember the Nintendo war, and everybody was like, oh my God, jumping in the trenches for Nintendo. I had Nintendo. So I don't know. There really wasn't a lot of, there was like TurboGrafx 16. Because now, like I said, now the bit system started to increase. Nintendo was an 8-bit system. And then we doubled it. And then, Sega Genesis was a 16-bit system. And then I forget, I think we went up to, I think we doubled it again. It went to like 32. But nor here nor there. I really didn't do anything. I mean, nothing. I had gotten a job. Now I am way into the millennium. The turn of the century has happened. You're saying to yourself already? So it's already after the year 2000. And I'm 25, 26, 27. Wait a minute. 25? I was 27. I was 27, working a job. I was married to my ex-wife, and a couple of coworkers at my job were like, man, you got to get a PS2. I didn't have a PS1. Now, my cousins, Jerry and Dominic, they had a PS1 and they had a Super Nintendo. Because I remember like Crash Bandicoot, if I'm not mistaken, and then they had Shadows of the Empire, the Star Wars game. You can kind of see Darth Vader up on the clock. Maybe not. And that was like the only experience I had with those game consoles. In fact, I didn't really play anything like TurboGrafx 16 or, Nothing. Like Sega CD, or I think there was something called Dreamcast in there. I didn't play any of those. I didn't, I didn't really have, I was like, all right. So all of my friends were like, oh yeah, you gotta get PS2, and you gotta get an 7+1, an 8 MB memory card, and you gotta get GTA 3. My ex-wife and I were completely horrible with managing our money. So I remember like cashing my paycheck in cash and like putting like some aside for the rent, some aside for the car payment. All of our utilities were included in our first crappy apartment. And I remember driving to Walmart after work, getting a PS2, getting the 8 MB memory card. If I said 8-bit before, I apologize. It was 8 MB, and GTA 3. And I think I paid, I really should have did the math on this one. It was under 300, but it was enough to piss her off. It's like, why did you spend that much money? And I remember I came home and, loaded up GTA, and I hadn't gamed in a long time. I mean, honest to God, I got rid of my Sega Genesis you know, probably 3 or 4 years before this. So it was a while. It was a long time since I had ever sat in front of my TV with a controller and was like, and I was smitten. The next game I got, I remember everybody was into SOCOM. I remember that. That was like the precursor to Call of Duty. Oh, you got to get SOCOM. I never got it. The next game I got was a game by Ubisoft called Splinter Cell. I curbed my accent on that one. Splinter Cell. Um, and Splinter Cell was an espionage game, and it was basically like what Metal Gear was for Nintendo, but on steroids. And I loved that game. And there wasn't a lot of games that I was like really obsessed with, with the PS2. And like I said, I never had a PS1, but definitely GTA 3. And then I got Vice City. And oh my God, the soundtrack for Vice City, because it was all 80s. It was fucking awesome. And Splinter Cell, and then the other Splinter Cell chapters that, they released. There was something called like Pandora Tomorrow. I think I had like 3 of them. And nevertheless, that was it. Like I didn't have the Xbox or anything else like that. And then I'm thinking here, it was oh God, 2000, 2007. 2007, I actually won in a sweepstakes at my job, a raffle. It was a flat screen TV and an Xbox 360. Now, Xbox 360 was released in 2005. So I got it 2 years later. I got it in 2007. And I had just moved out here to the locker where I am today. And here I am. I got, a liquid, what yeah, it was made out of liquid. What are they called? The LCD liquid crystal display. It's not the flat screens like they were today. They were a little bit thicker. They were heavier as shit. And I got Xbox 360. And that's when, of course, the Call of Duty started. And that was like my first real induction in online gaming. And then I remember everybody talking about the red ring of death. It was all about now I didn't get it. I got vaccinated. My PlayStation. Yeah, okay. My Xbox 360 did not get the red ring of death. But what it did get, I'm sorry, what it did get was there was an update. I'll never forget. I had an update, and there was because it was Microsoft. Xbox was made by Microsoft. There was a Microsoft Windows box on the screen. And I clicked update now, and then like the little fuel meter, going to the right, took 45 minutes, and not thinking anything of it. And then I remember update complete, and I either shut the Xbox or did whatever. I remember putting on the TV like later that night and seeing like some kind of shadow. I was like, what? And then Nothing pissed me off more than this. That box, that window that came up for the update that stayed on the screen, burnt into my fucking TV screen. I was so pissed. And I was like, that was it. I never wanted another, Xbox product after that. So next I went and I think I treated myself. I think it was 2014, even though it was released in 2013, the PS4, and we got it and we totally immersed ourselves in a few games. We got it in 2014, and the flagship game was The Last of Us. And it was just so funny because I remember that's when I actually took a step back and was like, they've come a long way. Because now it's like, I remember 1982, sitting in my parents' living room, jumping over barrels with Mario and getting a hammer and smashing the barrels. And now I'm playing this game that is portraying this post-apocalyptic world 40 years into the future, and it is so cinematic where it's the type of game they are now, the type of games where from a Gen X perspective, we were the kids that when you were playing a game, we were just sitting there going, I got next. Can I get a turn, please? But man, the way the games, started to come into their own, like a lot of these, role playing games, at least, the Final Fantasy series, which I don't know anything about, but I'm just using as an example. They're, like I said, the way they're structured, like the cinematics of the game, you could just sit there like this and just watch the other person play it, and you're just like mesmerized, you know, and and it's something my wife and I do like to this day. So like when I got The Last of Us 2, I remember she's sitting on the couch, having a cup of tea, and she's like, go in that door over there. Let's see what happens. And then apparently all was well and good, and I was a good boy for Christmas. And just this past Christmas, I got a PS5. Even though it's been out for a couple of years, PS5 was released in 2020. So let's go over the list. There's only 7 gaming consoles. It's right there in the thumbnail. These are the 7 gaming consoles that I've owned. I started with ColecoVision in 1982 upon its release. Then a couple of years went by. I didn't get anything until 1986. I got Nintendo. Then a few years went by. I didn't get anything until I was 15, and I got Sega in 1990. And then I got nothing until 2000, and that was PS2. Then the Xbox 360 was the 5th game console I got in 2007. The PS4, which is in recent years, 2014, I got it. And then just this past Christmas. So seven's the match. 7 little chipmunks sitting on a branch eating lots of peanuts on your nephew's ranch. You know how that nursery rhyme goes from the sea. I fucked that all up. That was something about Mary. So yeah, seven gaming consoles was all I had over the years. But I wasn't, like I said, I mean, I like to ride my bike, so it wasn't like I was coming home and immersing myself in video games. Maybe I did a lot more when I was married to my ex, just to drown her out. But other than that, I wasn't like a complete vegetable, like, a lot of these, a lot of the boomer parents were worried about, you're gonna turn into a vegetable, but that's not the case. But that was my journey. That was my journey into the home video consoles of Gen X. Like I said, I didn't have them all. These are the ones I had, and I just wanted to tell you what I had and how much fun I had with the ones I had. That's a lot of heads. So again, guys, I appreciate you being here on this journey. No, honest to God, I'll got you right here. No, thank you. Always drop a comment. You can email me at the Gen X Locker at outlook.com. Please share the videos, share my channel. Go ahead and give a like, give a subscribe. Even if you're not a Gen Xer, like I said, it's Gen X and we're all about the love. And as always, what do you want to hear? Any episodes that you're thinking about coming up? Like I said, I got I got my book chock full of ideas, and I really, honestly, God, I couldn't wait to do this one. But no, there's plenty coming up. We're gonna do a whole Mallrats episode. Later on in the summer, we're definitely gonna have some guests on. If I can get my one buddy, I really, really hope I can. But definitely Eddie from the Realms of Metal, the Realms of Rock, one of my best friends for the last 30 plus years, 31 plus years now. I definitely want to do the Action Park episode with him. So keep that in mind. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. So don't burn yourselves out. So until then, kids, I bid you adieu. And as always, be groovy to each other. We don't edit, so I'm just going to go ahead and shut this. Peace.